in our best of 3 PvP in the round of something is going to be between the top left player Harstem and the bottom right player SKillous. It is the round of 8. There you go. Winner of this will most likely be facing Max Pack, so Spat's going to try and give him a run for his money. On the other side of the bracket, we actually do have a non-Protoss in possible contention, but for the most part, we're all Protossed up here. So SKillous versus Harstem. Certainly not the first time they faced off against each other. But how is their history? Harstem has won the last 3 times they've played against each other. They do play very frequently. Before that, SKillous was on a 4-win streak. Before that was a Harstem 4-win streak. Before that was a SKillous 3-win streak. They do tend to go in waves by the looks of things. Overall, it does look like Harstem is... Wow. Yeah. Okay, something just happens. Harstem technically has more games won, but SKillous has 1 more series won. And that is going all the way back to 2019. So, much more relevant information. Last 2 times Harstem won. Before that, it's still in July of this year, SKillous was on a 4 series win streak. So it's... basically, what I'm trying to say is I have no idea who's going to win. I don't think there is a clear favorite. And it is PvP. So, like, who cares? Whatever the stats do say. Cowboy, Harstem. I'm going to go for some cheesy chase. Little proxy Stargate action. SKillous, having seen the lack of pylon, is desperately wanting to know what is that actually being used on. Are you actually using your second pylon for something? At this point, it's becoming clearer. If this probe could go ahead and get an official scout on that lack of nexus in the natural, well, SKillous would 100% know that he is dealing with something legitimately proxied. He still wouldn't know what, though. Depth is going to get in. That's not the best situation, although a stalker was waiting there just to have the Adept get any information at all. Such as, hey, there's only 1 stalker in the main base and no shield battery. That's good for Harstem. SKillous certainly wanted to block that out. Certainly. Adept was hoping to kind of combine here with the Oracle to be further distractions, I guess, but Oracle will be going in now that there's 2 stalkers. This really does change that dynamic quite a bit. Very close timing on SKillous' second stalker helping out. Sentry now more helpful. Well, kind of. I mean, against shields. Like, oh, anyway. Sentry enough when that Oracle is already damaged. Plus, there is a shield battery to go to. That's kind of clever positioning there for SKillous that helps with both kind of the mineral line as well as the actual front attack. Shield battery in the main is not ready to go, however, and second Oracle is already here. Despite not being the most proxied Oracle in the world, that still ended up having the timing. And SKillous got a little lucky with that second stalker on the first Oracle. Not so lucky on the second Oracle's timing. And both are alive, which obviously can combine later and come in and go through that shield battery protection. To be fair, that was damage that Harstem really needed to do. SKillous apparently had a tremendous probe lead, as he has lost 11 probes, yet still remains 1 probe ahead. So, you know, that was a lot of probes. Twilight Council, about the same time for both players. Despite Harstem grabbing these Oracles and a Stargates, he probably had slightly less Stalker production up until recently to afford the Twilight Council and the Blink to start at a good time. Now we have a very similar setup as far as the actual army. 1 more Sentry for SKillous, 1 more Stalker for him as well. But Blink timing really important, because if you're significantly behind on the Blink timing, even though 2 Oracles are, like, their potential is kind of limitless, they could go in and kill 11 more probes. They could have a really amazing stasis trap. Scouting in this game, obviously very important. They don't help defend a 3rd Nexus, so if you're behind Blink by a full minute or something crazy, and SKillous goes for just a little pokey poke and realizes, like, oh my god, you don't have Blink, I have Blink so much faster. I mean, this 3rd Nexus actually is not a guarantee. With both of them having Blink around the same time, this really being the general expectation as well of post-Stargate play. I mean, SKillous isn't going to bother really trying to move out against Harstem's third and vice versa. So if you're not going to do anything about that third base, then I guess go ahead and get the Macaron, right? So the probe count still somewhat similar, but SKillous having a consistent lead. His third Nexus is also just a little bit faster as well, as he really took command of the situation, kind of brushed off the Oracle damage, which was very wise of him to do, because he's still ahead. And then he's also grabbing this slightly faster Robo, which doesn't necessarily mean the world. You know, Harstem could not have a Robo for a lot of this game and actually still do kind of okay. But it is nice to have a Robo, have that guarantee of the Observer. You're definitely not going to die to Dark Templar. Well, you're going to straight up die anyway. And Immortals should not be underestimated. And that is usually something you will grab with this Robo, is 1, 2, sometimes 3 Immortals. Hallucinations all across the map. That's one of the main reasons, really, that Harstem would have warped in a Sentry. Oh! Resonant Glaives. This has been making a little more of a comeback in PvP. We're going to see a 3-base Resonant Glaives Immortal, I guess, kind of attack. The Immortal almost seems redundant, I don't know. But yeah, we're going to have a big attack. Resonant Glaives, definitely not what you need when it comes to a 15, 20-minute 5-base versus 5-base PvP. But when it comes to this moment, Glaives can work out. It is interesting seeing it come back into the matchup in a more macro sense, though. I mean, we definitely went through a phase where 2-base Resonant Glaives was an absolute thing. Breaking through the natural, threatening the main. Like, that's kind of classic, but 3-base? Still has a timing that can work out. Harstem being very aggressive with the Stasis Trap, something now discovered. One Oracle goes down. I think SKillous kind of hoping that both of them would. Ends up missing out on one. Sees the aggressive Oracle Stasis Trap positioning and might be a little more wary about further ones. He does have an Observer with his army, but you can see that Stalker at the front might go ahead and just pop one. Which is better than the entire army, of course, but just throwing it out there. Unfortunately for Harstem, this doesn't trap Warp Prisms, but at least scouts the Warp Prism. It scouts some of the Adepts. Can't believe they actually don't get caught right there. And with Adept being warped in higher quantities than just 2, I mean, you would know. Harstem should know what's up. Harstem, fortunately, already has a really good defense against Adepts, and by that I mean Archons with a couple of shield batteries. Excellent to have. Stasis Trap will get popped. It's going to blink forward, catches a few more units than SKillous anticipated, but he's going to try and break on through. Stalker's on top of that shield battery. Second shield battery also going to get targeted down. No shield batteries for Harstem, but the Immortals are kind of wasting some shots here on the Zealots. Those Archons able to obliterate the Adept account, and then Harstem Stalkers actually jump on top of the Immortals to officially grab the deaths there. He keeps his Archons alive. He keeps his Immortals alive. And the shield battery is already on the way. This was a fantastic hold from the Cowboy. And SKillous's potential game-ending attack on the 4th base of his opponent, by the way, does not work out. His own 4th only just now finishing up here. He could try and play this game out in a macro sense, but he's got to recognize that Harstem could have a pretty fierce counterattack. The Archon technology, certainly a boon, whereas the Adept technology, again, it's getting worse and worse as the game goes on. Yeah, absolutely comeback time, and what is better for a comeback than a Disruptor? It's pretty freaking good. Adepts will be used for harassing and actually defending against Zealot. Harass, actually not too bad, as you can see here. But as far as the main army goes, nothing really... Oh my god, that Stasis Trap from the beginning finally comes into play! I thought that thing would have expired! And probably SKillous did as well. Or maybe he really never saw it. That would be kind of... Oh my god. Wow. His blink is on cooldown. This is a terrible time to be caught in a Stasis Trap. SKillous with no other way of dealing with this. He just has to kind of take an engagement, but you can see how poor that went. Disruptors are on the way. But I fear they might not be here fast enough or good enough to actually hold on against Harstem, who's powered up on 4 base economy, +2 slightly faster, more Immortals on the way. Immortals actually might be less and less impressive, honestly, as the game goes on. But Harstem's economy and his superior army supply Means that he has a lot to work with. SKillous having to defend all 4 bases, this angle, and this angle, and possibly the main base if a Warp Prism flies in, right? That's going to be very difficult with Disruptors, and their main weakness. But if Harstem kind of stubbornly just continues to attack it on the front lines, Disruptors might save the day. I doubt they're going to get really great shots, but if they keep Harstem from committing, then that's kind of a job well done. And if Harstem ever pulls away... Oh my god, the Disruptor is going to go out now. This 3rd Disruptor, though, no! We're not being paid attention to! 4th Disruptor is here for one last miracle shot. SKillous holding that in the chamber. Realizing he's in a lot of trouble. He went for that overly aggressive Disruptor play, trying to catch Harstem off guard. And while it did kind of, I mean, that one's also not too bad. It wasn't the most amazing results. Warp Prism still intact, reinforcing more and more and more, but Disruptor count at 3... about to be at 5. This is the type of Disruptor counts that, attacking Protoss player might not actually commit into. They might go ahead and say, you know what, I can't deal with this. Let's go into my own Disruptors. Let's try and attack a different angle. Let's try and multi-prong. Let's try and go into Stargates also as a possibility. Disruptors getting some decent shots. Immortals getting their shields popped. Actually not, a most amazing unit against the Adepts either. Adepts are providing that little frontline fodder almost like a Zealot. But in this case, this actually has been like hypothesized, I guess. This has been talked about, but hardly ever seen. Adepts are weirdly better with Disruptors, right? Because they don't potentially sacrifice themselves running face first into their opponent's army where the Disruptor shot is. So there's like a weird benefit of having the Adept still. But I was trying to say before that attack happened, if Harstem ever pulls back, SKillous has time to replace his Adepts. He can use his Adepts offensively, although once again using them defensively, and run around, buy more time, get some damage done, and then he can replace them with better units, frankly, because as much as it is kind of neat that Adepts don't clash with Disruptors, it's still not the greatest thing to have. You will be moving on from that. And speaking of moving on, Harstem did add his own second Robo, but not for Disruptors. He's actually still building a mass Immortal count, realizing his opponent's really digging deep into the Stalker Disruptor play. And while the Disruptors might never ever be touched by the Immortals, the Stalkers certainly will be. Big run-by attempt from Harstem, not going to work out here. Some fine positioning from SKillous. Archon Edition can be that little bit of a push over to actually get this killed or canceled, but in this case, kind of a waste of Archons. They killed 2 Stalkers, maybe. At this point in time, I want to say SKillous is officially recovered, guys. But now the transition, as I was trying to explain, Immortals are one thing. Bigger, much bigger thing is the Stargate transition. Harstem, obviously still with his proxy Stargate, funnily enough, but also further Stargates. Fleet Beacon also on the way. Already starting up his upgrades. Goes for Phoenix, which, by the way, super classic way of dealing with Disruptors. You can't depend on Phoenix forever to deal with the Disruptor problem, because basically, when the Disruptor count's so large, 7 Disruptors, the likelihood of all the Phoenix ensuring they never get a shot is pretty low. Like, they'll definitely cancel shots before they die. They'll pick up and they'll cancel a shot, and the Phoenix will get suicided in turn. Sure, but, as far as a reliable, consistent way of dealing with Disruptors, Phoenix are a little iffy. So really, if you want to avoid playing with or against Disruptors, your actual goal is eventually to go into pure air, like Tempest and Carriers, which SKillous has already figured out. He's already moving on. He's not going to try and win the game with his own counterattack of Stalker Disruptors. He's going to go ahead and move over into the Stargates, which he probably A, anticipated or scouted, there you go, Harstem doing, but also B, realizing that without that transition, it would also be difficult to kill Harstem. I think Harstem had more of an opportunity to actually kill SKillous, but at this point in time, ending the PvP is difficult. And this is a kind of an interesting scenario. SKillous stuck in a rock and a hard place, both called the Immortal. That's 4 Immortals on either side. Stalker's going to try and sacrifice themselves in one direction to try and kind of, mitigate the damage, I guess. Oh no, oh my god, it's actually a disaster. Holy shit, this is such a big disaster. Oh my god. Not only did he lose all those Stalkers before the recall happened, but his Disruptors are being rallied in because he thought he had a position. He thought he could match up the Disruptors with his Stalkers to save the day. And that just ended up being super terrible, horrendous timing. Oof. Despite that looking freaking horrendous. It was a horror movie for Protoss players. This actually, again, doesn't end the PvP. It's just so hard to do that. At this point, Harstem adding so many upgrades and so many expensive units can't just like instantly remax and counter after taking down so much army. He knows that there's a possibility that shield battery overcharge, further disrupt their production, and whatever else SKillous has, because his economy has not been bad, might go ahead and remax surprisingly quick. Phoenix had kind of a questionable, again, place in this particular moment where like they could be very useful. Well, there you go. There's very useful right there. But then they also might not look that useful. I mean, if they clump over these Archons, good luck, have fun. Mothership's going to be on the way here. Do we have an Observer? Yes, we do. SKillous just lost his, which I presume means that somewhere in this army there is one. There is. Okay, I just couldn't see it. So the Mothership Cloak's not going to be able to help out. SKillous, once again on the ropes, defending his third Nexus, but it looks like it's going to happen. His fourth Nexus still happily mining. His fifth Nexus also happily mining. Of course, Harstem on a similar and actually better economy. All the bases plus a handful more workers, but unable to quite kill SKillous, at least thus far. Immortals actually do get popped by a Disruptor. Phoenix count starting to really get quite low. Back to the shield battery we go. Mothership barely going to survive. The cloaking field was activated. I'm not sure if the Observer died. Apparently it did. That's exactly why SKillous activated it. Good on him, because I could not see the Observer for the love. I actually am really surprised he targeted it. But thankfully, he's much better than I am. And Harstem is he's maybe still going to win, but that cloak was actually pretty cool. Now it's not going to be able to save the day. What is going to save the day is SKillous just seems to have too little. His army supply actually is better than his opponent's, but where the hell is it? How is it working? Probe's going down a little bit anyway, but not too much. More reinforcements necessary to save that fifth base for SKillous. Not going to be able to happen as he is still under pressure on his fourth. Harstem finally digging into the economy with one of his attacks. Something he missed out on in previous iterations. Is not only going to grab this fifth base, but also cancel the sixth, which, funnily enough, finally scouted the proxy Stargate. Cowboy on 6 bases himself, still on 81 workers. SKillous having to replace now just not his army, but also his economy. Potentially, it does look like he's recognized there's no reason to produce more probes. I am running out of minerals. It would be a waste of time and money. Which he's right, but it's still not a great thing to be saying. Upgrades currently favoring Harstem as well. He's got 2-1 in the skies with that shield upgrade helping out. His supply overall better than his opponent's, but slightly deceiving thanks to the almost 30 worker difference. That is keeping SKillous close in the actual, if not even on the actual army supply. Now the problem are those upgrades. Phoenix gonna be able to come in and help out. Actually, SKillous sent his Stalkers over to the left side to go and try and defend his fourth, but that did not end up being the play. Just getting absolutely massacred by a mortal Archon. And this is finally going to be a Harstem victory. Arguably in the lead since minute 9? When did that adept attack happen? But it can be so difficult to kill a Protoss as they get to 4 or 5 bases, as they get to Disruptors, and as they also max out. And, you know, a maxed out army is kind of fair game between the two people. You could still have a bigger bank. You could still have better upgrades. You could still have better positioning. But actually killing a defensive Protoss equal-sized army, historically very difficult. I have to remember to put the cat cam in game. Dimitri's being all cute. He's been kind of a butt, actually. Even before my parents left for a little vacation, leaving me as the only human at home. Just 6 cats. Anyway, even before that, he was being really needy. And unfortunately, Dimitri's neediness is not... It's not so much cute as it is painful. He never used not to use his claws. Never learned not to use his claws, so... If he wants attention... I took my shower yesterday and looked at my thigh And that's mostly where he, like, grabs on, and it's just, like, there's, like, 50 scratches, like, tiny little scratches. I'm gonna die, probably, of, cat scratch fever, but it'll be a good life. Okay, so, Ghost River. Top right, up 1. He is Harstem. Top left, down now. It is SKillous. Tried an adept. Committed attack. And it didn't work. That sometimes is how the cookie crumbles, guys. But really, what made it not work, especially, was that I think Harstem kind of picked up on it. A lot of hallucinating scouting. It's time. Oh my god! Oh my god, we have a cannon rush from SKillous? Okay, definitely wasn't anticipating this one, guys. Okay, quickly summarize last game. Adept no work, Harstem counter, SKillous not recover. Okay, gotcha. Alright, cannon rush. Wow. You know, good thing it's cast earlier today, so go back to that. When you expect someone to cannon rush, you can already have a lot of really good things already going for you. Like the lack of second gas, for instance. Maybe you already put 2 probes down to, like, 1 on the high ground, 1 on the low ground, like Harstem actually did end up trying to do. But because it is a surprise, the chances of this working, I still think, they're better than the previous cannon rush that we were seeing on this stream. It might have been better, but it still isn't good enough, apparently, because Harstem is taking care of it. The probe pool is fast enough. Well, the second gas is pretty much unnecessary for a game like this. It's not harming him enough. And, well, I mean, I'm always a fan of trying something in this environment. It's not the end of the world if you don't win an open cup, but it's still a really good practice ground. And I'm guessing that's what SKillous was trying to do here. Because I think he knows that he could definitely beat Harstem. Although, recently it is Harstem favored. And so I don't think he's just like, oh, I'm so desperate, nothing else will possibly work. But maybe a little bit of that, a little bit of experimenting, and maybe a little bit of the map. Perhaps he thought that that would be really abusive down there. When a cannon can hit some of the mineral line... I'm actually not sure it could. Anyway, then maybe it's a little bit better. But yeah, Harstem does deal with it. Easy peasy. That's a 2-0 in favor of Harstem, the captain, the cowboy. And that means he's going to be facing Max Pax in the next best of 3.